Time now to introduce our first team entering its first season in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. Today we kick things off with the football team. Joining us from the football team today is head coach Shay McClure, offensive coordinator Reilly Murphy, defensive coordinator Shawn Howe, senior defensive lineman Keanu Foki, junior defensive back Colton Olson, and senior wide receiver Aubrey. Guys, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Kurt.
First, a question for you, Coach, and more of a statement, rather, I guess you could say. When I think of football this year, and you alluded to this at the RMAC Media Day a couple of weeks ago, I think of the word new. New conference, new coaches, new players, new logo, new mascot, new stadium name. I mean, it goes on, and most importantly, a chance to create a new identity for Dixie State football this year, Coach.
True. 100%. Everything you said is true.
So, with everything so new, what kind of impact does that have on the season as you get it? It's a chance to make a fresh start here at Dixie State.
You know, it is, and again, I mean, it's a work in progress. You know, every single day we're trying to get better on the field, but also off the field. You know, we do talk about creating a new identity for Dixie State University football, you know, and who we are and what we're going to represent and how we're going to play the game, you know, and philosophically how we're going to go in and how our players are going to attack the game. You know, so yeah, it's a new approach probably, you know, in everything we do. You know, and it's taken a little bit of while for the kids to get used to that, and they still are, you know, but they've been very receiving of what we've asked them to do and worked hard at it.
Open it up to questions from our media panel.
Coach, talk a little bit about the coaching staff you've assembled. A lot of them you were familiar with before, some you weren't. Talk about how you've gelled as a coaching staff.
Yeah, I think it's come along really well. You know, obviously on the defensive side of the ball, where, you know, I was a year ago as a D coordinator, promoted my defensive line coach Shawn Howe to defensive coordinator. Our assistant defensive line coach became our full-time D-line coach, and then brought in a defensive backs coach, Isaiah Williams, who had most recently been at New Mexico State, but I had known probably 10 years ago and kind of followed his career a little bit. So there's a lot of familiarity on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, honestly, I looked around, you know, and Coach Murphy and I had recruited against each other a lot. I'd seen what he'd done with, you know, the talent or lack thereof that he had down at, you know, Western New Mexico, and you know, got together. He had the same philosophy as I did, called around, knew some people that he knew, and it just gelled. You know, offensive line coach, Keanu Lou, you know, again, familiar because one of my best friends happens to be his cousin. You know, so it was kind of, you know, through that coaching profession where you know, kind of know somebody everywhere. And he's been a great addition. Love Coach Lou. And then Coach Mesa, our wide receivers coach, was most recently over at Loyola High School in Los Angeles. But Coach Howe and Coach Mesa had spent time together at the University of Southern California. So again, there was a great familiarity. You know, you do take some chances sometimes, even assembling a coaching staff. But to have some continuity, familiarity, hey, at least this guy knows this guy, and, you know, and will speak for him in a positive manner and what we're looking for this coaching staff. So I think it's been a great melding of guys from all over the place. A lot of new ideas, a lot of ideas that, you know, I already had, you know, so again, to come together, old, new, and put it all together has been great.
Coach, I'm just curious if you can talk about some of the big-time camp battles right now. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple spots that are still up for grabs at this point in time with the first game coming September 1st. Can you spotlight on some of the areas where there's some good competition?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Devin, I'll say this. There's probably 19 positions that are undecided out of 22 starters, and that's the truth. You know, again, I mean, we've got battles going on, and we went into camp, you know, and you know, we talk to the kids all the time in the recruiting process. Hey, you're going to get an opportunity. We're recruiting you for a reason to come in here and compete for a starting job, and we're letting that happen. You know, there's some returning guys, you know, especially on the offensive line, you know, with John Hamilton and Jared Clark that I feel really good about. You know, I'm not going to say their job is ever safe, but, you know, they're solid. Keanu Foki here. Colton Olson here, you know, I mean, those guys went through the spring with us, you know, obviously both played for us a year ago, had a great deal. Now, Aubrey missed a year ago, but, you know, obviously I'd coached against him. You know, was also having a good camp. But again, I mean, there are position battles wide open everywhere. We still got 2 weeks till game one. We just had practice 9 finished up about an hour ago. You know, so again, I mean, it's hot and heavy, and we're moving guys around, putting them in positions to see how they react.
Coach, a lot of the RMAC schedule, you know, you may or may not be familiar with. They don't have a lot of history with Dixie State. You know, whether you are familiar or unfamiliar with them, you know, it looks like it's a lot of teams that Dixie State just hasn't played. You know, does that sort of breed a sense of like excitement because you don't know that much about a team, or is it, you know, a different kind of challenge? I mean, how do you
really, honestly, it only comes down to game one, you know, and we open up with New Mexico Highlands, and, you know, Coach Murphy spent time in the RMAC, like you said, down at Western New Mexico, so there's a familiarity there. You know, at my previous institution and here at Dixie, I've played probably about half the RMAC schools. You know, but again, you know, you go to New Mexico Highlands, they have a new offensive coordinator, so there's a little bit of guessing going on there. After game one, you're going to know what your opponent does and who they are and what they're about and their personnel. You know, so really it's that September 1 kickoff that you go in with a little uncertainty. You kind of prepare a little bit for everything because you don't know what they're going to throw at you.
Question for Coach Murphy. Coach, you do have some experience in this conference. How do you think that helps you with this offense? And then also, what should fans expect from your offense? Can you give us a little bit of what it'll look like for the upcoming season?
Yeah. I would like for our offense, when fans take a look at us, that we're a tough physical team. You know, that's something that we are going to run the ball very well, and, you know, it starts there, and from there, everything goes from there. And being familiar with the conference does help. You know, there's some things that we've done that in the past that we had some success with, and some things that, you know, I'd like another shot at those guys again. So those, you know, that could be an added benefit, and again, they kind of know what I do as well. So there's a double-edged sword to that.
Coach McClure, obviously there was some recruiting done before the coaching change, but since the coaching change, did the pitch change at all as far as recruiting players to the team?
Well, you know, it's funny because, you know, Carrick brought it up, everything being new and being new and being new. Well, guess what? After I was hired is kind of when that all fell down. You know, I mean, we rebranded the university, the $10 million donation, you know, from Legend Solar, you know, everything that was coming came at that point. So it was, you know, it was kind of a whirlwind a little bit. Yeah, we got a little bit of a late start on recruiting just because, again, you know, myself, Coach Howe, and Coach Aubrey, my D-line coach, really were the only ones left on staff. So, you know, and to bring in an offensive coordinator and say, hey, by the way, I recruited these guys for you, I don't feel good about it. You know, he knows what he wants to do. We had talked about it, but, you know, at the same time, those new guys came in and they had been recruiting some people at their former schools that we didn't know about. So, you know, there was an added benefit to it. You know, the only negative, I think, in things and how the timeline played out was, you know, we weren't able to really do the mid-year recruiting, you know, where you try and get transfers in at the mid-year so you can get them used to your system so they're not learning it like a freshman today, you know, but that's really the only thing I feel like we missed out on.
Coach Howe, just curious, defense ahead of the offense so far in fall camp?
Well, I certainly wouldn't say that. I think it's really been a good battle. It's been a back and forth. You know, I think that, you know, like last night, for example, Coach told the team today, we go inside run, and we did a pretty good job. We walked away from that drill feeling pretty good, and then we went down to red zone, and Coach Murphy and the boys lit us up pretty good, and we walked away from that, you know, pretty ticked off and didn't sleep well and all that stuff. So it's been a good back and forth the whole time like that.
Question for really any of the coaches. What have you guys learned about this team that maybe you didn't know in spring ball?
Go ahead, you guys can answer.
Well, you know, with a lot of the new additions to the team, I think so far, and Coach McClure has talked to us about it, is, you know, we can't get those guys out of the locker room. Right now it seems like they're really bonding and coming together well, and it's still early, but, you know, the gelling process seems like it's heading the right direction.
Coach McClure, when I spoke to you earlier, you said you probably wouldn't pick team captains till the second or third game. You're going to let the natural leadership come out. Has there been any players that have shown that natural leadership through camp and up to this point?
You know, a little bit. You know, again, I think that, like, you know, Devin asked about the position battles. It's still, you know, the guys are fighting for their jobs, fighting for just to be on the field, whether it be one or two. You know, obviously we always talk about getting on the bus or the plane and who's going to make that travel squad of 56. You know, so again, yeah, there's been some guys obviously that have taken a little bit of a leadership role. I'm still waiting for more of that to arise, and I think it will, especially as we start to get into game planning, you know, and getting ready for somebody else and the guy you got to see next to you in the locker every day. You know, that makes it a little difficult at times.
I'd like to talk with Aubrey Reed for just a second over there. Hey, man, I know you got injured last year. That was pretty frustrating for you. If you can just talk about the road to recovery and the excitement level for you now in your senior season coming off that injury.
Yeah, last year was pretty rough. Hard to watch the games, just being on the sidelines, not being able to help my team. But it was a long rehab process. Got back in the spring, was limited, but I could still run the routes and get my footwork back and everything. Now being full go, it's great. I love it. Love being out there. Love being with my teammates. Bonding's great. Love the offense. One of the best offenses I've ever played in, and everything's going pretty well right now.
Keanu, you've been here a couple of years now, and you know, of course, Coach McClure's come in and really changed a lot of things. What has been the biggest change under Coach McClure?
The biggest change under Coach McClure is pretty much his process that he puts us through. He always preached to us about things that I never heard before, honestly. So like us running around, flying around, being physical, pretty much mentally trying to get our plays down and stuff like that. So that's the difference.
Colton, talk about your expanded leadership role on the defense. You're coming off a great year last year. How do you duplicate it, if not improve upon it this year?
Yeah, you just build from that. So last year was last year, so it's a new year, and I got to start over again and then go from that. And leadership is just everyone on the defense come together, and we just need to come as one team and then build off of last year and do better this year.
What was the offseason like for you specifically?
Probably just getting the little things down. You know, I knew the defense. Coach Howe changed a little bit, so in the spring we worked a little bit, but then those technicality things that I might have been bad on last year, I say the little things is what I changed most in the offseason, through the spring, through the summer, coming into fall camp.
Colton, I remember preparing game summaries last year. Before a game, I looked to see who the leading rusher was for the year before, and a couple games was you. Was it? Do you miss the offense at all, or do you like or maybe I'm incorrect in that?
I've been on defense since.
Have you ever played offense for?
Not here at Dixie State, no.
Oh, okay. I'm probably thinking of someone else. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
What did you guys? The question really for any of the players: what did you guys make of getting picked to finish 9th in the RMAC this year?
I think preseason standings don't mean anything, you know. Going to the RMAC, they don't really know what we're about, first of all, and then our showing last year in the GNAC wasn't as good as we'd like it to be, so we can take it as motivation and go from there and build off of that. Obviously, we don't believe we're going to come in 9th, and so we like to stay humble, but have that motivation, and then go into the season knowing we'll do better.
Keanu, 1 touchdown last year. A fumble, rumble, return.
Yes, sir.
You got any personal goals for you this year? You got a number of tackles or sacks or turnovers?
Pretty much. Our personal goal is just to be the leading sacker in the conference, and then we'll go from there on. But most of all, I try to prepare for every practice, take the coaching, being coachable and stuff like that.
Coach Howe, talk to me a little bit about the defensive mindset. Are you guys going to be pretty aggressive at times? I know it's based on matchups, but what's your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I tell you, for us on defense, we're going to try to play the fastest, most physical brand of football we can possibly play. And, you know, a lot of the things we do and a lot of things we coach, teach, and preach to these kids is going to all be built towards getting these kids playing as fast as we possibly can. And I feel like the best defenses I've always been a part of or seen play are the fastest defenses. And so, you know, we talk about it every day to these guys. Me and Coach Mack and the guys, we go into the defensive staff room, and it's like hours and hours spent on how can we cut this down, how can we cut the verbiage here, how can we make the rules more simple so these kids can really go out and play fast. And you know, and that's really, I'd say that's the most important thing for us on defense, and then, you know, obviously with the physicality after that. So
Keanu, in fall camp and practice, you guys are having to, you know, face some pretty good running backs on your team. You know, just going on the other side of the ball, could you just talk about how, you know, how deep they are, what they all bring, how hard they are really to stop from a defensive perspective?
Our running backs, they're pretty good. They hit the hole real fast. So pretty much on our side of the ball, we just try to keep our gaps. That's what our coaches preach us every day. Just keep our gaps, hold it until the ball passes the line of scrimmage. Then we all chase the ball down.
Coach Murphy, is it kind of nice having a pretty deep stable of running backs?
Yeah, it's really nice. You know, we got some really good guys back there that bring different elements, and they bought into what we're trying to get as an offense. And you know, we're blessed right there right now. And you know, with Cliff Sims, Orlando Wallace, Coleman, you know, pick your poison type thing.
Coach Howe, have you looked at like the offenses you're going to be facing later in the season at all, or have you just pretty much focused on your team now in the first game? Or
that's a great question. Tried to do a little bit of looking ahead, and like Coach Mack said, really our biggest focus is that first game. An unfamiliar opponent, an unfamiliar offensive coordinator, who's coming from a place that I kind of have a little bit of familiarity with. We just peaking right now at some other teams, but right now it's about our guys, getting our guys right, getting a more consistent performance from our players. That's really what's important right now. So,
Colton, do you think this defense can be a little bit more opportunistic as far as creating turnovers from what you've seen through the spring and the summer now into fall camp?
Yeah, I think that'd be a big thing this year. One of our mottos is get to the ball, and then get the ball. And I think we really can implement that this season a lot better than last year. I think we struggled on that a little bit last fall, getting turnovers, especially at the start of the season. So I think if we can create turnovers, that's a big game changer, and that's always the goal, to win the turnover battle in a game. And I mean, if you look at it, if you win the turnover battle, you're likely to win the game.
Coach, we talked about the new conference. One thing that comes out of that and is the fact that there's 11 teams that play football, meaning you don't have to play a team more than once. Is that really a big factor to some of us media types make a bigger deal out of only having to play a team once? Or as a coach, how do you look at that?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I've had to do it the last 10 years, and now not having to do it, boy, am I happy. Because I'm going to tell you, I've beat people the first time around, and then you go play them the second time, and it is one of the most difficult things you can do. Obviously, they know you, you know them. You come up with a great game plan. Your kids get all excited, play that first game. You go out and you do a great job, and you get the victory. All of a sudden, 3 weeks later, you got to turn around and do it again. And so again, yeah, that is very difficult. It's hard to get kids in recruiting through that. So again, the move to the RMAC is great for us. I mean, I look at it as positive, positive, positive. It probably is a stronger conference than the GNAC. Just, again, you've got Colorado State Pueblo, who won the national championship and then lost in the semis. You've got, Mines, who's gone to the playoffs 3 out of the last 4. You got Mesa, who finished the season in the top 20. I know all 3 are preseason top 20. And then you've got schools that have battled them over, Fort Lewis beat Pueblo. So again, anything can happen in this conference. But yeah, playing a different opponent every week and not having to prepare for the same person twice, huge.
How big of a lead does Tyson Blackner have on the starting job right now, Coach?
With who?
On the rest of the quarterbacks in camp.
Yeah, they all get the same reps. We'll make a decision probably game 1.
So you're saying he does not have an advantage right now?
No one has an advantage right now.
Are there any freshmen you recruited that have a possibility of starting games?
Most definitely. Most definitely. And again, like I said, when we recruited these young men, we told them we were going to get an opportunity to compete for the job. And that's exactly what we're doing. Some have risen up and are doing a great job, and we've made that move, really in the last 2 days. Not necessarily, hey, it's your job now, but more so, hey, we're going to let you run with the ones and see how you react. We're going to get you more reps in a live situation and see how you react. And so again, yeah, there's probably, I'm going to say 7 or 8 freshmen right now that I can see in our 2 deep for sure. We're going to be a young squad, and again, we're a little older maybe up front on the offensive line, a little older up front on the defensive line. But outside of that, we're going to be a young football team, and I don't mind that. Again, we recruited some really good athletes to come in here and do what we want them to do, and they're doing it.
Have you had any early setbacks with injuries at all, or is everyone pretty healthy?
Just little things, nothing major, knock on wood, but guys that are being held out of practice, here and there type of deal, but, nothing season ending or anything like that. Normal camp stuff.
How's Blake Barney's camp going so far, in your opinion?
Blake's
Coach?
doing great. And, again, I love the fact that Blake kind of pops around and does everything and doesn't complain about it. And I actually kidded him yesterday that we were putting in kickoff this afternoon. I was going to put him as the number 5 running down to, to blow people up. And he said, okay. I didn't even flinch. So, no, Blake's doing great, and I love Blake's leadership. He's one of the young men that I think really does step up and doesn't really do it with words. But just the way he carries himself, the way he goes about his business, both on and off the field, I think truly resonates to the rest of the guys.
We got to run to our first break of football. We appreciate you coming by, Coach McClure and the guys. We wish you the best of luck throughout the season. Of course, the football team opening their season at home on Thursday, September 1st against New Mexico Highlands. That game will kick off at 6 p.m. Mountain Time from Legend Solar Stadium.